Thanks, Corla. And obviously the time is limited. I just maybe wanted to refer to one of the issues, because clearly the issue which did unsurprisingly dominate the EU summit was, of course, the revelations of the whole-scale spying by the US government on their European counterparts, including many leaders of European countries. And naturally, such a scenario would provoke outrage and condemnation across the board. Well, almost across the board, because I have to say that the Taoiseach in many ways stood out like a bit of a sore thumb for the wrong reasons against that backdrop, displaying yourself either as somebody who's unwilling or unable to understand the significance of what was going on here. Now, obviously, you were joined by David Cameron, who wouldn't be in any position to give out about any other country's surveillance regimes, given the conduct of the GCHQ. But that said, to me, and I think to many Irish citizens, Taoiseach, the attitude you displayed is at variance with the attitude that most people in this country have, and I think it is important to put that on the record, because a lot of people are beginning to question, is there any limits below which you won't sink in your slavish adherence to our masters across the water, as you seem to see them? And there seems to be a belief that you are the leader of the 51st state of the Union rather than an independent sovereign country. You could have played a lead role in this area, but instead you chose to, in my opinion, actually diminish the significance of what was going on. Because while on the one hand you acknowledged what had happened to Angela Merkel's phone as being an appalling situation, if it was true, I think you said, but then you went on to downplay the significance of that by kind of joking that nobody would listen to your own phone, and if they did, sure, you wouldn't really mind about that at all. Look, that is not good enough. It's an absolute understatement of the potential invasion of Irish privacy which is going on here and the very serious issues at stake. And rather than dealing with that, you again did it today. You sort of said, Asher, look, at intelligence gathering is very important in the role against terrorism. Now, how could bugging Angela Merkel's phone be dealing with the war against terrorism, unless, of course, it's the economic terrorism which Mrs Merkel and her counterparts are unleashing? But I don't think you'd have a problem with that, considering that you agree with it. The reality is that this has been a serious attack on the rights of all European citizens, and I think that it's absolutely imperative that there should be an investigation into the conducted regarding potential spying on the Irish public, and I think people have a right to know that information. It's absolutely inconceivable, given the role of Ireland as a gateway for US companies into the European market, given our role in facilitating tax avoidance by many US corporations, amongst others, and given our role in handing over Shannon Airport to the American establishment. It's absolutely inconceivable against that backdrop that mass surveillance hasn't been underway in Ireland or a trawling for information. And to me, for you to say that there's no indication that that is the case just belies the reality of the information that is out there. Of course, denials are made by the authorities when this information is put to them, and they only really admit it when they're kind of caught out. And I think you do need to take cognizance of that, because the actual evidence would demonstrate the opposite of what you've been saying. And I think, you know, I was very glad to see Edward Snowden interviewed last week around the time of the European gathering, and acknowledging that the sacrifices he's made in his young life, he has felt vindicated by, because of the discussions and because of the attention being put on mass surveillance as a result of the revelations that he put into the public domain at enormous sacrifice for himself. And he was putting it on the record that there needs to be a massive oversight of government intelligence agencies, which needs to be stepped up. And I think we have a role to play in that. He made the point that citizens have to fight against the suppression of information about affairs of essential importance to the public. Those who speak out the truth are not committing a crime. And he went on to talk about how spying technology and surveillance is clearly now a global problem. And we, as citizens who believe in openness and transparency, have a moral duty to ensure that our laws and values limit surveillance programmes and protect human rights. And I think you, as the leader of an independent, neutral country in Europe, many of the European authorities who were screaming and kicking about the United States engage in inappropriate surveillance themselves, although probably not to the same extent. But we are in a unique position where we could lead the way on that and have an open and informed debate for dealing with this global problem.